Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast aimed at intermediate to advanced level English learners. How much money is housework worth? A recent court case in China gave a housewife compensation for doing almost all of her family's housework, while her husband did not help at all. Millions of hours of unpaid work are done every year, mainly by women. Let's discuss this further on this episode of Thinking in English. But first, why not follow the Thinking in English Instagram page, Thinking in English podcast, or the link is in the description. And you definitely should look at our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog, for all of our transcripts and bonus content. Here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is available in the description of the podcast and also on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Invisible. Invisible. If something is invisible, it is impossible to see. For example, these bacteria are invisible unless viewed with a microscope. Undeniable. Undeniable. If something is undeniable, it is certainly true. As in, she is a woman of undeniable brilliance. Contribution. Contribution. A contribution is something that you contribute or do to help produce or achieve something together with other people, or to help make something successful. For example, this invention made a major contribution to road safety. Paternity leave. Paternity leave. Paternity leave is a period of time that a father is legally allowed to be away from his job so that he can spend time with his new baby. For example, many fathers decide not to take paternity leave. Asset. Asset. An asset is something valuable belonging to a person or organization that can be used for the payment of debt. For example, a company's assets can consist of cash, investments, specialist knowledge, or copyright material. To compensate. To compensate. This means to pay someone money in exchange for something that has been lost or damaged or for some problem. For example, victims of the crash will be compensated for their injuries. And finally, commitment. Commitment. A commitment is a willingness to give your time and energy to a job, activity, or something that you believe in. For example, my manager won't promote me because she says I lack commitment. In every single country on earth, women earn on average less than men. There are many different reasons for the gap in wages, including the length of time spent working, different industries paying different wages, and less women working in managerial positions. Maybe one day in the future, I'll talk more about this in detail. Maybe more about the wage gap and its causes. But today, I want to focus on one reason in particular. Invisible work. Invisible work is, simply put, work that you're not getting paid for. Work that is not an official job. While both men and women can do invisible work, it is undeniable that women make up the vast majority. By unpaid work, I do not mean volunteering or internships, but things like cooking, cleaning, and taking care of children. The contributions of housewives and stay at home parents are often overlooked and underestimated, but they really shouldn't be. Unpaid housework and household chores are vital to our modern economies. In fact, according to figures calculated from the Office of National Statistics by Young Women's Trust in the UK, the unpaid work of young women aged 18 to 30, such as cooking, cleaning, and taking care of children, is worth £140 billion to the UK economy. And this would be significantly more if the figures included women of all ages. Earlier this year, I read an article covering a recent divorce case in China, which actually inspired this episode. A court in China ordered a man to pay his wife $7,700 for the housework that she did during their 5-year-long marriage. The wife said that she looked after the child and managed the household chores while her husband did not care about or participate in any other household affairs besides going to work. And this might sound like a familiar story to many of you. It is common in almost every country for the majority of household chores and housework to be performed by women. In China, for example, women spend about 4 hours every day on housework, while men only do an hour and a half. In India, the gap is even wider, with women doing approximately 5 hours every day, and men just 30 minutes. On Chinese social media sites, the response to this court case was generally positive, very positive. If anything, commenters were a little bit disappointed that the wife was only given $7,000. Many people felt she deserved more. China has recently started to take women's rights more seriously, as well as trying to encourage men to take a more active role in childcare. For example, many provinces have now introduced paid paternity leave for fathers. However, this paternity leave is often too short to really make a difference. When men's paternity leave is only 2 weeks, as it often is in many countries, that is only 2 weeks of extra household help provided to the stay-at-home mother. Outside of China, there has been less success in arguing for extra money in divorce settlements based on housework. Normally, divorce in the West is based on an equal 50-50 split of a couple's assets, and housework does not change this. Just as, for example, if a man was earning $100,000 a year at his company, that would be split 50-50, even if the woman was earning less at her company. So with housework, it's the same idea. If the woman does more housework, it does not entitle her to extra help. However, in 2020, a woman in the UK was awarded £400,000, which is about $520,000, for leaving her career as a lawyer to focus on raising her family and child care. However, she was not compensated for housework, but because she quit her legal career. She was a very successful lawyer and one of the top performing employees at her law firm, but had to quit for her family. And now that she was getting divorced, the judge decided to compensate her for her loss of earnings, not for her housework. In many situations, women often have no choice to leave their jobs to care for children and families. Often, this is because the cost of paying for childcare may be more than the money they would earn from working. However, there are probably better solutions than asking for compensation in a divorce court, such as in China. Really, you don't want to let it get to a divorce court in the first place. So, one solution would be for governments to encourage both parents to be more involved in raising children. Perhaps offering more paternity leave and asking companies to be more understanding of fathers' home commitments could be useful. If fathers have more time at home and are more involved in parenting, then dividing housework will also be easier. The most important step would be to encourage men and women to share more of their domestic responsibilities. Share the cooking, share the cleaning, and share the caring. So here is today's final thought. In this episode of Thinking in English, I have looked at how much unpaid work is worth. Around the world, women, especially, do the majority of housework and household chores. Economists have often struggled to estimate the value of this invisible work to national economies, but it is certainly important. The example I gave earlier of the UK, it's worth more than the financial industry. If you were to hire someone to do your cooking, to do your cleaning, your ironing, your childcare, you would likely be spending hundreds of dollars a week. So, what do you think? How much money is household work worth? In your country, is responsibility for chores shared? Or is it the woman or man who generally or typically does it? And how about in your personal situation? Do you share responsibility for household chores with your partner? Would you want to be compensated for your domestic work? Thank you for listening to today's episode of Thinking in English. Please share with your friends, check out our social media links in the description, and send us a message. We really appreciate all of your feedback. And if you have any ideas for topics or future podcast guests or any other learning format, please let us know. And please leave me a rating. We're now on Instagram. I'm sure you've already seen it, but go there, check it out. Lots of good content about vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar. And Instagram is a great way to contact me. It's Thinking in English Podcast on Instagram, or the link is in the description. Also, all of the transcripts of the podcast are now available on the Thinking in English blog. Vocabulary list, comprehension questions, and all of the articles are there for you to read. That link is also in the description, so please check it out too. Thank you, and see you next time.